Hello history learners. I'm here to share fascinating stories from history in an audio format. If you enjoy today's episode, consider subscribing for more history content like this. Without further ado, let's dive into today's episode and learn how karate evolved from a local fighting tradition in Okinawa into one of the most widely practiced martial arts in the world. Imagine standing on a small island chain in the East China Sea hundreds of years ago. To the north lies Japan. To the west, China. To the south, the kingdoms of Southeast Asia. This is Okinawa, once the heart of the Ryukyu Kingdom, a place that would eventually give birth to one of the world's most famous martial arts, karate. Many people assume karate was born in Japan, but the story is far more interesting. When karate was taking shape, Okinawa was not simply another Japanese province. It was an independent kingdom with its own culture, language, traditions, and international relationships. Because of its location, Okinawa became a crossroads of trade. Ships arrived from China carrying silk, ceramics, books, and ideas. Merchants from Japan came to do business. Travelers moved between distant ports, bringing knowledge from across Asia. Long before the word karate existed, the people of Okinawa practiced local methods of self-defense known simply as te, meaning hand. These techniques were not part of a formal martial art. They were practical fighting methods passed from teacher to student. Historical records from this period are limited, but most historians agree that these native fighting traditions formed the foundation upon which karate would later be built. As trade with China increased, something important began to happen. Okinawan officials, scholars, and travelers encountered Chinese martial arts. Chinese families settled in Okinawa, particularly in areas connected to trade and diplomacy. Along with their language, culture, and customs, they brought fighting systems that had evolved over centuries on the Chinese mainland. Rather than replacing Okinawan fighting methods, these Chinese techniques blended with them. Over generations, local practitioners experimented, adapted, and refined what they learned. They kept what worked, discarded what didn't, and slowly created something new. This process did not happen in a few years or even a few decades. It took centuries. One of the most popular stories about karate involves a ban on weapons. According to legend, Okinawan farmers were forbidden from carrying swords and developed karate in secret to defend themselves against armed rulers. While there is some historical basis for this story, the reality is more complex. In the late 15th century, King Shoshin sought to strengthen control over the Ryukyu kingdom and restricted the possession of weapons. Later, in 1609, samurai from Japan's Satsuma domain invaded Okinawa and imposed their own authority over the islands. These events likely encouraged the development and preservation of unarmed combat skills. However, modern historians generally agree that karate was not suddenly invented because of a weapon ban. Instead, it evolved gradually through cultural exchange, military traditions, personal study, and generations of practice. As the centuries passed, different regions of Okinawa developed their own approaches to combat. In the royal capital of Shuri, fighters emphasized speed, agility, and direct techniques. This style became known as Shuri-te. In the busy port city of Naha, where Chinese influence was particularly strong, practitioners focused on breathing methods, close-range power, and body conditioning. This became known as Naha-te. A third tradition emerged in the village of Tomari, blending elements from both. Together, these systems formed the roots of modern karate. During the 18th and 19th centuries, several influential masters helped shape the art. Among them was Sakugawa Kanga, often remembered as one of the first major figures to combine Okinawan and Chinese fighting methods. Later came Matsumura Sokan, a royal bodyguard whose teachings would influence generations of practitioners. Their students continued to refine techniques, develop training methods, and preserve forms known as kata, choreographed sequences that recorded fighting principles and tactics. For much of its history, karate was taught privately. Instruction was often limited to small groups or even a single student. There were no large schools, no international tournaments, and no colored belts. Training was personal, demanding, and often secretive. Everything began to change in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Okinawa had become part of modern Japan, and educators started looking for ways to improve physical fitness among young people. One of the most important figures of this period was Anko Itosu. He believed karate could be more than a fighting system. It could also teach discipline, character, and physical health. Itosu modified certain aspects of training and introduced karate into Okinawan schools. This decision transformed karate forever. What had once been a relatively private martial tradition now became accessible to ordinary students. Soon another key figure emerged, Gishin Funakoshi. In 1922, Funakoshi traveled from Okinawa to mainland Japan to demonstrate karate. The demonstration was a success. Japanese martial artists, educators, and government officials became interested in the art. Funakoshi stayed in Japan and dedicated his life to teaching karate. As karate spread across Japan, it underwent further changes. One of the most significant involved its name. Originally, karate was often written using characters that meant Chinese hand, reflecting the art's historical connection to Chinese martial traditions. But during the early 20th century, practitioners began using different characters that were pronounced the same way but meant empty hand. The new name emphasized unarmed combat while also fitting more closely with Japanese martial philosophy. By this point, karate had become much more than a regional Okinawan fighting system. It was evolving into a modern martial art. New organizations were formed. Training methods became standardized. Different schools emerged, eventually leading to styles such as Shotokan, Goju Ryu, Shito Ryu, and Wado Ryu. Then came World War II, one of the most destructive conflicts in human history. Okinawa itself became the site of a devastating battle in 1945. Many historical records, cultural treasures, and personal documents were lost. Yet despite the destruction, karate survived. In the decades that followed, American servicemen stationed in Okinawa and Japan encountered karate and brought it home. Instructors traveled overseas to teach. Schools opened across Europe, North America, South America, Africa, and beyond. What had once been a local martial tradition practiced on a small island kingdom became a global phenomenon. Today, millions of people practice karate. Some train for self-defense. Others compete in tournaments. Many are drawn to its philosophy, discipline, and history. Yet behind every dojo, every belt, and every kata lies a story that stretches back hundreds of years. Karate was not created in a single moment by a single person. It was born from centuries of cultural exchange. It emerged from the meeting of Okinawan traditions and Chinese martial arts. It survived political upheaval, foreign invasion, modernization, and war. And from a small island kingdom between Japan and China, it spread to every corner of the world. The next time someone asks where karate came from, the answer is not simply Japan. The true story begins in Okinawa, in the old Ryukyu kingdom, where generations of masters slowly transformed local fighting methods and foreign influences into the martial art we know today as karate. Thank you for listening to today's episode. I hope you enjoyed this journey into history. Be sure to come back tomorrow for another fascinating story from the past. And if there's a historical topic you'd like to hear about, feel free to leave a suggestion in the comments. Your ideas might inspire a future episode.